So what I do, I just pause the simulator. You saw the runway flash by there, right? Let's see here. I just want to check if. Okay, so we're just pausing the simulation at the moment because I want to make sure your Foreflights are set up. So you only have to do this once on your Foreflight. But what you need to do is go to the More tab down at the bottom, and then go to Devices, and you should see an X-plane. Okay? And so what you do here, just watch up here for a second, is touch on the X-plane here, and when you touch on it, then it comes up with a mostly blank screen, and if you notice right up in the top right-hand corner, the top line says Enabled, and then on the top right-hand corner, you can see a little slider. You have to slide it over so it's blue, because it's not blue initially. Okay? And once you do that, if you go to the map page, you should find yourself in Norman Wells with a little airplane there at the airport.
Yeah. 28 feet above ground.
28 feet above ground? Well, it was just after takeoff.
Okay.
Okay, so you only have to do that device setup once. So if you're in Norman Wells, that's fine. Just let your map load the Norman Wells area. And Dale printed some stuff for me. So what I like to do for my navigator class is I take a couple of navigators and just checking to make sure that we got everything. Yeah. Okay. Just take one and pass it around.
You have to share them.
Oh, yeah, because there's only 10 copies. What I do, I search briefing object page. You guys are familiar with that somewhat? And then the mission page. So I give my navigators a mission, which is Norman Wells area. Okay? And then they take their nav log and their map, and they start drawing lines and planning their flight according to the mission. And then I tell them what airplane they have and what specs it has. Listen for questions like, well, how much fuel's on board? I give them some number. And I get them to plan their flight. And you guys, being keen and enthusiastic and fast, now have that completed. And there's your package. You've got your 1 to 250 scale map, your VNC, and you've got your nav log calculated. Oh, the aircraft that we are flying, you may notice, is CF-CVT. And CF-CVT has some interesting characteristics. It's got, it cruises at 100 knots, and it searches at 100 knots.
100 horsepower.
Yeah, at 100 horsepower.
That's pretty good.
It's efficient.
You can't change the speed on the CVT, and it cruises and searches at the same speed, and it's set for 100 knots. So you can assign your navigators whatever aircraft you like, but I recommend that it cruises and searches at 100 knots because that's what it's going to get. And so you've done your mission plan, and you familiarize yourself with the area. And so what I do when I'm doing this for navigator training is I kind of have this over on the pilot side of the classroom, and then I have my navigators kind of sprinkled over here somewhere. And you can do any number with Foreflight. Like you've all got ForeFlight running, you've all got the location. You could all be navigators on today's flight using ForeFlight. But you can simulate, okay, your navigator, you've got your folio there, you've got your map on one side, you've got your gizmo on the other side, you've got your pencil, you're all ready to go, right? Or you wait until they're all ready to go. You get them all set. And so we do our final briefing, whatever it is we're going to do. We go to the airplane, safety briefing, everybody buckles up, we're ready to start the engines, or whatever it is you do. I'm not a pilot. So you start your engines. Base, this is CFCVT. Right? You can do all that. Simulate the calls that you're supposed to do. Make your paper records. You can talk about stuff. Pause the simulation. Okay, we've got our engine started. The CVT, you cannot start the scenario on the ground, and you can't start it. You cannot start it with the engine off. So that's why it's 50 feet above ground over the airport. So we started the engine a couple of minutes ago, and you guys did or didn't remember to write it down. And then I'm telling you, we just took off. Okay, so you probably record that too, right? And not being a pilot, I forgot to say prior to that, what's going to be our outbound heading? Or radio or whatever, okay? You can look at your nav log and figure that out and tell me what I need to do. And what altitude do we want for transit? I'm the pilot now, right? So these are questions I need to ask.
1,300.
Okay. Oh, one thing I have to qualify here is we train our people in the NWT possibly a little bit differently than you guys do. In that we fly with a lot of charter pilots, and they know nothing at all about Casera. So in the manual and in your training, wherever you have, it says the navigator does this and the pilot does this. Unless it's flying the airplane, our navigators do it all. Okay, so I will probably say the navigator does this and that and the other thing when maybe you guys have the pilot do that. That's just because we have to train our navigators to do it all. Because our pilots know nothing about anything except how to fly the airplane. And
It's true, I will.
okay, so we outbound heading, altitude. What altitude do we want? 1400. 13. Okay. So on the CVT, oh yes, right. I forgot. We didn't take that one, but the controls for one thing when you're running the simulator is you're not flying an airplane. I like to say you're flying the autopilot. All we're doing is we're giving the autopilot instructions about whether we want it to go at a particular altitude or a turn it to the left or turn to the right. The ASD keys and the W and the X key are the easiest way to control the direction of the aircraft. You can also click on rate 1, rate 2, left turn or right turn or roll out. So you can touch those keys, and or you can just hit the ASD keys, right? And then the altitude. Right now, the altitude is set for the target altitude for the autopilot is set to 500 feet. And so you want me to go up to, I will unpause this and we'll start to run the simulation. So I'm going up to 1400. And I'm turning to the heading that you gave me. And if you look on your Foreflight,
It's backwards.
it's backwards.
Yeah, because it's in a. No, I'm sorry. You're right.
You're backwards.
You got it.
Leave the flying to the pilot.
You should see on your Foreflight that the airplane is moving,
Right.
and we're climbing. Oh, I can put the CBT has some navigator instruments that I can put on the screen here for you. I'll put them right there.
You can tell if you want to see what that looks like to change the aerial to If you want to cut it.
Oh, okay. Right. Of course, at this point, well, at any point when you're doing a session teaching people how to use Foreflight in the air, you can talk about the map that you have displayed. If you just want to hold that one up, so he's got the actual ground map, the satellite image map, right?
So it looks like that.
So it looks a bit more like that, right? If you you can put on the artificial horizon
Track
stuff.
up
Now we
on
can't.
north of it.
I don't. It's not simulating that, is it?
Yeah, it is. Oh, it is.
Oh, it's just that no attitude. No attitude. That's all. Yeah. So it has some stuff on the heads up display there, and but if you were flying in Norman Wells, you probably wouldn't have the satellite image in the background because we've probably already lost self-communication. And if you didn't download it ahead of time, you don't have it with you. I don't know what they get now, but they used to only get 2 gigabytes a month on the data package for their Wi-Fi. I mean for their LAN. Anyhow, you probably can't afford to download this here, is what I'm saying. But we have a fast connection here, and you can play with that stuff. The other thing you can play with is the different kinds of things that you can have displayed. You can talk about the display that you have down at the bottom, the fields that are shown. The thing is, we're flying, and you can start to experiment with what works. Spotters are going to see something, they're going to call you around, you got to figure out your coordinates, you've got to make waypoints, things like that.
So, Dave, have you been able to migrate the search pattern from Aussie into Foreflight?
Yeah. You mean like that?
Yes.
Okay. We have here. We have figured that out. Yeah.
You don't have. That's the only. You can go on. I'm just curious.
Yeah.
We can talk about that later if you want.
Okay. Yeah. And actually, just.
We should maybe mention what are that's the actual weather.
Oh yes, right. So what's our ground speed?
87 knots.
What's our airspeed?
100.
Well,
100.
Your navigator instruments are on the screen.
Yeah, it's
Oh.
100.
It's 100, right?
Yeah.
We forgot to check the weather before we took off. Bad, us. Just somebody tell me what the winds are in Norman Wells right now?
Yep, 147.
Sorry, 147?
140 at 7.
Oh, at 7.
Yeah, that's at the
That's at the
or the
airport.
beach at the airport. Yeah,
On the ground.
on the ground.
Yeah, he only did it this morning.